It's the Paris Chong Show. It's the Paris Chong Show, show. It's the Paris Chong Show.
And this year's Bachelor
We're going
was
to talk
great.
about the Bachelorette next. But
Okay.
hi, everybody. Thank you for coming back and listening and watching the Paris Chong Show. I guess you figured it out that I'm Paris Chong, and I guess I'm here with another dear friend. And actually, this is one of my homegirls that I spend a lot of time with, and I am so happy to introduce you to my friend Lesa Amoore.
Hi, everyone.
Lesa Amoore is an amazing photographer, and she used to be an amazing and very well-known model, or noodle, as I call them. And she's graced the cover of Vogue and Elle and Photo and countless others. And she's a San Diego girl. So welcome, Lesa.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, my friend.
I know. I'm happy to
Yeah.
have you here. And thank you for doing the pop-up Saturday at Butcher's Daughter. That was amazing.
Thanks for hosting it,
those-
and congratulations on your show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, your work, I was looking at your website yesterday because I guess I haven't seen it for a little bit. It's not like I think people think I sit in the gallery all day and look at everyone's website, which I wish I had time to do. I don't even look at mine. But I saw I had some really gorgeous new photos and some video work.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get the video on my website for some reason.
But there was something on there that
yeah,
was
but
cool.
there's
with
there's
the
like
guy,
some
that opening
that was with
shot.
Peter Gadio eating the
Uh-huh.
ice cream and stuff,
Yeah.
trying to make it a little fun. But yeah, no, I've been doing, and I've been switching out where originally I was very focused on fashion and things like that. Lately, a lot of the projects I've been doing have been involving more, even if there's people in them, even if it's an advertising, but they've been involving more animals or plants or things like this. Like, I'm finding kind of, branching out to less talkative objects to photograph.
Yeah, because you've photographed some really interesting people. And we also did another pop-up way back when, remember, in Hollywood with
For
the
Bella.
for the swan song.
Yeah,
So
for Bella Hadid.
Lesa shot Bella and Gigi Hadid.
Yeah.
What was it like? So, and that's right before they both kind of blew
Yeah.
up. I remember.
Well, with Bella, it was amazing because the show that we did, that was just sitting one. That was the first sitting of 4 sittings. So we shot Bella and those swans over
So
the course
beautiful.
of a year. And I think she was maybe 15, 16 when we started. It was sort of kind of a coming of age
Mhm.
thing. And I wanted to be old classic Hollywood style, but we had to follow her across a year. So that was really fun and interesting, and just watching her interact with those swans and like
No,
trying
it
to
was
pick
a
up a big
beautiful story, but you
swan.
could tell she was a little younger. She still had the kind of baby fat
Yeah,
face. Like now
yeah.
she's so
Like
thin
when I
and
was young, when I
yeah,
first started modeling, my face was, quite,
not really.
young.
You always looked really thin and
No,
long
but
and
I
lean.
mean, you have that baby fat,
Yeah.
for so long. So she
Yeah,
still had
but
that.
she
So
still
she looked
looked
very
gorgeous.
innocent in
Yeah.
those
And the
pictures.
house was gorgeous. Did you go in different locations
No,
or?
it was shot at her dad's,
This
well,
house was
a
beautiful.
home that he had owned at the time, or excuse me,
Mhm.
an actual home that he owned at the time. And it was, yes, we just shot it there. Every time we would go there, it's like, we're back.
Well, she must have felt really comfortable in front of you because the pictures were so beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
then we also remember when we organized. Lesa did a show with us at Like a Gallery LA, and it was with our underwater camera, the
Yeah.
XU, which I think has since been discontinued, but it was a very cool
Yeah.
camera. And so we organized a shoot, and you shot these 2 gorgeous girls. One of them, Sarah, ended up marrying Brandon from
Yeah.
Incubus, right? So,
Yeah.
and those are what are
Oh,
hanging
well,
at
they're
the
both
Butcher's
so
Daughter.
lovely. And Dorrit Mouse was the other
Yes. Oh
one,
yeah, she's
who was a
amazing.
big supermodel as well
Mhm.
herself, and a photographer
Yeah.
herself. So she's multifaceted. And then Sarah, of course, is a ballerina.
Yeah.
So they were great to shoot. And that camera was funny because
That was a funny
we
story.
were first trying to test that camera, and I think I might have had it in my hand for about 10 minutes before I used it. And so some of the really exciting, I was talking to somebody at my pop-up, and I said, in the first 6 years when I made a lot of mistakes, I got a lot of really great things.
Yeah.
And I hadn't made mistakes in a while, but with that camera, I forgot to switch it. When you go out of the water, you have to switch
Yeah,
it.
I don't know how to use it.
Yeah, you have to switch it to now you're out of the water, and I didn't. So all of my out of the water was like these wonderful, like deep saturated turquoises and blues.
Yeah.
And so it was wonderful to see what a mistake could make again.
No, but it was the photos came out gorgeous. But do you remember that? So we were looking for a pool. So we were looking for a pool and we were just trying to figure out how to get underwater somewhere, and I finally just got fed up, so I posted on
Yeah.
Facebook,
Yeah.
does anybody have a beautiful pool a pool that we can use for an amazing photo shoot with Lesa Amoore? And again, this is the second time I'm bringing up Elizabeth Van Houten. Is that
Tim Hooten.
Tan
Tim
Houten?
Hooten. Yeah.
Tan Houten. Sorry, Elizabeth, because she's friends with Andrew, who wrote the jingle for the Paris Chong Show. But she immediately, and so cool of her, got back to me right away. And she's like, "I have a pool."
Yeah. No, she was
I
amazing.
know. And then
She was
she
amazing.
had like the most gorgeous pool that
No,
we could have
she was
used in
she was it
LA.
wasn't just the pool. She had a pond.
Yeah,
And so
a lily pond.
when I saw the pond, I was like, "Oh, oh, a pond." And that set the stage. That was it. Once I understood, and I remember you're like, "Lisa, the pond, get to the pond." I'm like, "Hold on, I'm trying something
I
over here in
feel
the
really bad.
trees."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Fuck the trees.
Get in
Get
the
to
water.
get to the
camera.
pond." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I used the
The
camera.
pond was amazing.
It was amazing because I used the camera half in and out of
Mhm.
the pond. And that's why you get that crazy stretch of
Yeah.
blur of the trees above and some of those imageries and stuff. So that was really exciting. I'd never done that before. I'd been working with water for a year or two, but I hadn't really done this kind of in out with trees behind everything. It was usually a kind of open sky or
Gorgeous
something.
photos.
Yeah, so
Though.
those were really
You
nice.
have to see Lisa's website and see these pictures. They're so pretty. And I feel kind of bad though because we had it all arranged. Remember that day you weren't feeling really well? You're like, Paris,
Yeah.
I think I need to reschedule because
Yeah.
I'm not feeling well. And I'm
Well,
like, I got a pool.
it, well,
Going
it
on
was
the
it was
camera.
even worse because
Oh.
we lost the original model.
Oh, that's right. That's
Right.
right. You had
Katrina
to.
Hunter had been, sick all night
That's
long.
right.
And so she physically couldn't make it to work. And I called Dorrit Mouse. I mean, Sarah Hay was serendipity
Yeah.
because I called Dorrit Mouse and she'd been working with my friend Dave. They were shooting a Bernie like a PSA or something,
Yeah.
right? David Moscow. And so I was like, "Hey, I lost a girl." And she's like, "Let me see if Sarah, this actress that's working with Dave." And I'm like, "Oh, please, can Dave get her out of there by 12?" And so it really was serendipitous, and I think we
Yeah.
shot it in 4 hours.
It
So
was fun.
there you go.
And who was the makeup artist? The makeup artist was awesome.
The makeup we had the
There was that guy, the French guy, I know he was kind of like
no, the makeup artist was that was the hair. That was
oh,
Bertrand
I love him. Hair.
Delacour, I think. And then the makeup is a girl, and oh my gosh, I feel so I'm sorry, I forgot your name right now, but I know I'll remember, and
We'll
maybe we'll
send
put
you
it
an
in the
email.
tag. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was amazing. And then my French Patim, kind of we also lost our stylist. Okay.
Oh,
I
that
mean,
day.
no, we did. We lost our stylist because he needed to check himself in. He was having like a suicide
Oh,
kind of
God.
watch. He was trying to jump off a bridge. He called me the night before that he was going to jump off the bridge, and so
You
it
were
was.
like, don't wait. Come here. There's a pond.
Yeah, yeah,
And a
yeah,
pool.
yeah.
We'll help
We can
you.
save you. You can
No,
simulate
kid,
it.
so kidding.
We can
That's not.
simulate it, and then we'll
No,
save
but
you before it
yeah, but
happens.
how horrible.
No,
I didn't know that
yeah,
story.
yeah. That
Ooh.
happened the night before. So then I called my French Patim early in the morning, and I'm like, "Hey, do you have anything?" I mean, because now I don't have a stylist, I don't have anything. And so he showed up with a couple of his designs and some fabric and
Yeah.
stuff. So we made it work. And
It was
I think
good.
it's a good testimony to what you can do when you just put a few creative heads together and say, "Let's see what we got,"
Yeah.
and not have too much expectation about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and you didn't need a lot of clothing because the
no,
girls weren't. One of the girls wasn't dressed for a while,
yeah,
but I'm always so jealous of people that can get naked like that,
yeah.
and just not be
Well, she's
totally embarrassed.
European too,
Yeah,
and I think that makes a big difference.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do a lot of nude modeling?
I did a lot of topless, not nude.
I remember seeing. Wasn't a photo a topless cover?
Photo is topless.
That
Yeah,
was a pretty photo.
that came from Vanity Fair. That
All
was
right.
a 21-page spread in Vanity Fair, and then she took Dominica Sermon was the photographer, and she took an outtake from
Hmm.
that and made it the cover of Photo.
So
French
back in the
Photo.
day when you were working in Europe and doing lots of covers, what photographers did you work with?
Dominica Sermon was
Hmm.
the one that I worked with the most,
Right.
and she was the probably, at least in my opinion, the most iconic French photographer. So I was kind of happy
Hmm.
just there. And I worked with Fabrizio Ferri. I worked with, I worked with a lot of photographers.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah, it's hard to remember
oh,
everybody,
you put
right?
me on the spot. I'm
No,
like,
that's
I don't
okay.
know
We'll
who
send
did
you
I
an
work with.
email too to thank you
Yeah,
later.
but I, you know, It's a crazy business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a crazy business, and I was just saying earlier how I was minding my own business one night watching TV, and which after a long week of work, I like to just watch my 60 Minutes because it's one
Yeah.
of my favorite shows. And I saw your face pop up talking about something, and I'm like, "What is this?" And I tuned in, and it was Carrie Otis
Mhm.
speaking about some really horrible things that happened to
Yeah.
her back in the modeling days by some of the guys that used to run Elite, right?
Yeah. Gerald Marie was the
Yeah.
owner of Paris, Elite Paris, and
Those guys got away
um,
with murder.
yeah, well, they're animals. I mean,
Yeah,
like, if you really think about the time we grew up in pre-internet, right?
yeah,
I mean, they're complete animals.
and
And
pre-Me Too, and
pre-Me
pre
Too,
everything. Those poor girls
yeah,
got
yeah,
so abused, and
yeah,
I heard it's like worse than we even know. I think
yeah.
even here with the American elite, there was a lot of stuff that was going
Well,
on.
yeah, because right now with Carrie's, for instance, Carrie Otis that you
Yeah.
mentioned, she was able to take advantage of the Child Victims Act. I work together with Model Alliance. I'm a member of Model Alliance who's they've passed 3 laws in New York to help models. 2 of them were to help survivors. One was the
Mhm.
Child Victims Act, one was the Adult Survivors Act. And then they've just passed the Fashion Workers Act. So that's the first time models actually have any type of legislation to protect their rights. So that's been amazing.
Mhm.
But with Carrie's case, she's actually doing involved in a human trafficking case from Elite New York. Then she was trafficked, as an underage, straight into the bed of Gerald
That
Marie,
is just horrific.
literally into the bedroom
They
because
put her in his
they
house,
put her in
right?
his
In
house.
his daughter's room.
Yeah, in his daughter's room, and that's where he, abused her, for months on end in their daughter's room, and she couldn't, you know, back then, you owe a lot of money to the agency. They hold your passports, they do this, they do that, so it's very hard to kind of,
Terrible.
get your autonomy back once you're, under their thumb. And so that was really hard. And it's not like it's over. I mean, even when you look at Me Too,
Mhm.
coming forward, when we had like Mario Testino kicked out of the
Oh
industry,
God, I know.
who, Terry Richardson, who they're trying to bring back. Like, I mean, he's like one of the most disgusting pigs ever, and they're trying to bring him back. He shot a campaign recently. And with Mario Testino, like the other day, I was going through my feed and I see a post of this guy who, he helped trap this one of the kids in Model Alliance, Kenny Sale, one of the boys.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
helped trap him in a bathroom so that Mario
Oh,
Testino could, sexually, abuse him. And I see him coming through my feed. I mean, he was at Arthur Elgort's, Fahey Klein exhibition, and it's like, how many times do you have to, warn the fashion industry that you've got these predators? I mean, that was the same guy who had death threats against my kids when I got violently strangled when I was working, shooting an artist for Atlantic Records, and I had to sue Atlantic. And so, someone like an Omar Alberto, he's going to get away. The larger person will take the case, and all of the enablers or the people participants, they escape, the publicity that's going to happen with it. They escape getting in trouble, having to pay for things, pay back for restitution for when you sue for somebody for, abusing you. So, um, so that's what we're still dealing with. I mean, they're still there. I mean, the dragons from my time are
yeah.
still
I
breathing,
know, and
you
they're
know?
still out there. It's still happening in the
Yeah.
music business with P
Yeah.
Diddy and Epstein and
Yes.
all. It's just still
And
happening,
it was
and to men
And it
as
was like a P. Diddy back
it
then. I mean,
sound.
it's the same thing. I mean, when I was in New York, P. Diddy was there at those times. I mean, again, this is all remnants from an era that should be a bygone era. It
Mhm.
really should be a bygone era. These people shouldn't be allowed back in, not because you want to punish them. They can get a job doing something else. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But why should you give them privilege to come back in when they've shown that they're unprofessional, when they're working? And
Yeah.
so, find a different job, find a different thing to do. You don't have to shoot women, like,
I know it's
you know,
such a it is such a
yeah. And
predatory business.
boys.
I know, and
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
men also,
Yeah.
these. I mean, it sounds like no, people talk less about that. I think it's more shameful
Yeah.
for men to bring things like that up, but I think it's
Yeah.
happening to a lot of the young men out there,
It
which
is.
is probably why both of us weren't interested in having our sons
Mm-mm.
become models because I know they both were asked to. But now, why weren't you talking? Because I was waiting so eagerly to see you talking on the 60 Minutes interview, and
Yeah.
I'm like, why isn't she saying anything? Because I know you all are a very opinionated, intelligent woman.
Hi, Disco. All right.
He loves you.
Hi, my baby. You want to come up here with me?
He always is ruining all his sweaters. He goes
Come on,
out and
baby.
he rolls around in the branches. And, yeah, he's heavy. Be careful. He's 15 pounds now.
Ooh, okay, you got to be
So
quiet though.
so when I was watching 60 Minutes, I was noticing now it was I think it was 60 Minutes Australia, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
Australian.
so
Yeah.
which I love. I
Yeah.
love the Australian one.
Yeah.
You didn't say anything the
Yeah, I
whole
didn't love
entire
it.
time. And so I was waiting and waiting. I'm like, there's my friend. I'm like, Leo, look, Lisa's on 60 Minutes. And I was wondering why you didn't say anything.
Well, I did when we were filming it,
Yeah.
but one of the conditions that I had and that was really important to me is that they didn't wrap the whole story around the journalist that was also a part of the story. I was fine if they did a piece on her, like they did a piece on each of the girls, but to wrap the whole episode around this journalist who essentially entrapped Gerald Marie, made it less for people to, to empathize and sympathize with that. Whereas we had girls there who had been raped viciously when they were underage, night after night, and so why would we spin the story around this journalist
So
who
she was wanting all the attention on the
yeah, who
story.
I felt, yeah, I just really wanted to carry it, and wanted all the attention, and I didn't want to support that. So I spoke to the producer after and asked her not to use my.
It's funny they kept you in though, because they were like,
Yeah, they used my pictures, and I even had to call her and ask her to change my picture out, and they did in later releases
yeah,
to change my pictures out. I didn't mind that they used my picture. It's just like I said, this is a really sensitive subject, and it's already hard enough. The backlash what we're seeing
hmm,
from Me Too, like with boys nowadays, they're going to go back to the Andrew Tates and stuff. It's going to become popular again, where these like kind of men who treat women terribly or hate women or objectify them or speak badly about them or traffic them or whatever. And so it's kind of that's the backlash. It's becoming hyper masculine, right?
yeah,
Again. And I mean, maybe some balance needed to happen, but this is like, crazy to say, hey, it's okay that we're fine that everybody's sexual abusers. Let's let them all out of jail. Let's let them into our country. Let's,
yeah. It's not good.
celebrate them. So,
Now you had an episode with him too, right, Gerard?
Gerald, yeah.
Gerard.
For me, um, with Gerald, he was persistent on me from the time I joined his agency. He was married to Linda Evangelista at the time. And he was, constantly flirting and making it seem to my bookers that we had something going on when we had
God.
nothing going on. And so it was making me feel really uncomfortable because what if it cut back to his wife that like
Yeah.
he's flirting with me and then, would I be blacklisted? I mean, that's
Right.
something you really have to think about. Like you can hardly speak up
Yeah.
about anything because they just you'll just not work again. That's it. You'll be sit back home. So it was really hard. I mean, he appeared on my door, banging on my door late at night.
Sounded like
Um,
it was his MO for all the ladies that were
yeah.
talking.
Yeah, I had to push him off me a couple of times when he, would try to, hold me up against a wall or things like that. But um, it was really, I think the last straw with Gerald was when we were out at like they have these
Mm.
kind of fancy only the top girls from the elite board models go to this particular theater event or whatever where they're honoring someone from the industry or something like that, and I was there with all the models, all the elite models, and Gerald put his hand on my breast and my ass at the same time when he came up to give me a hug.
Oh God.
And that was it. I'd had enough,
That
and
is
I threw my
awful.
champagne in his face, and basically, a few weeks later, I had left the agency. I mean, that was just enough for me. I'd had enough, and I'd heard kind of stories that he'd been chasing around other women at the time, but I didn't realize how deep and how insidious it was
Mhm.
until, 25, 30 years later when women had a time to process and have their own lives and become whole again, that
Yeah.
they could now talk about it and come out and say, hey, that happened to me too. And it turned out that there were 15 women
I know it was, and
that came out.
you could just feel
of
their
that.
pain, and just like,
Yeah.
that it was
I was one of the
it's hard
lucky
to talk
ones,
about. Yeah. I know it
totally.
sounds awful what
Yeah.
some of those ladies were saying on that show.
But we need to support Carrie because she's still going through this lawsuit.
Mhm.
Um, they tried to get it, to get it thrown out because but they said that the law didn't cover this is jurisdiction to do with
Mm.
France. It should only be in America, but they won the appeal. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, I was
so
happy to
yeah.
see she's happily married with a beautiful
Oh, she's
family and a beautiful
amazing. Carrie's
husband. I know I
amazing.
met her back in the day when
Yeah.
I used to work at this really fun place called Chaos, and she used to come in all the time, and she was just fabulous
We
and
went to
beautiful.
France together to give our
Hmm.
testimonies against Gerald
When was
because
that?
that was in 2021.
Wow, not that long ago.
No, no, we all flew over there, or not all of us, but 5 of us, let's say, and we gave our testimonies to the detectives, and then we held a press conference, and then we were invited to join the French Senate, via Zoom. We were all there
Wow.
was a few in person, but I was in Switzerland by that time, so I joined via Zoom, and so we were all able
We're on the
to
same
do that.
floor as the French consulate, right? Did you see
No,
that when you came in? When
no.
the elevators open, we're actually in the same building with the French
I
consulate.
wonder
Isn't
if I
that
can find a
cool?
new French
I
husband.
think you
Should I
can
just,
go. Yeah, I
you
think just
know?
when we're done here, you can wander over there and just pretend you're lost.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you did have I know, and you
Bonjour.
did have a French husband, didn't
I
you?
did,
Where is
yeah.
he?
He's,
She has two gorgeous sons, and they're
yeah,
both half French.
yeah,
And you're a
they're
California girl.
yeah. Well,
Hmm.
they're actually not half French, which is strange. Their their dad was born in France, but the mother's Belgian, and the
Oh,
father is English, Spanish, Italian, and French. So my sister had done one of those DNA
oh
tests,
yeah, I did
and
that too.
I'm waiting. She hasn't given it to me yet. I'm
Why?
like, could you? I'd really like to know what my children are, like the
Well,
whole
she
mix.
did a DNA test for your
For
kids?
everybody. Like she's like, hey,
Was it like 23andMe?
Christmas gift. Yeah,
Oh, I
like
know.
we're
I
gonna
did
do
that too. I
this.
was so scared, and I'm so scared like a distant cousin's gonna get arrested
But
for
she said with the
something
23
horrible. You know how you hear about these horror
or
stories
you're like,
that they found out that
you have
somebody
12 brothers that you didn't
or
know
something
about.
really
No,
awful.
but apparently with 23andMe, they found out that like anybody who has Scots Irish, which I do have Scots Irish blood, they messed it up, and so the numbers keep changing all the
Yeah.
time, so you
Oh
don't even
no. Oh
know.
God.
So I guess we have to wait my sister said you have to wait maybe another year or two for it to kind of balance out, and then to get all the Scots Irish to understand if you're actually Scots or Irish
Oh
or Scots Irish.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, mine was very accurate from what my father told me we were. So it was like 64% Eastern European, which I'm German, and then the rest there was like Asia, the rest was like Eastern Asia and a little, and I had like 1% Native American Indian. Isn't that cool?
That's amazing because I grew
Do
up
I own land here somewhere? I don't know. What
right?
does that mean?
No, I grew up thinking I was Native American. I grew
I
up
guess
thinking I
I
was Native
am.
American. I thought that we had because we had a Native American great
Hmm.
great great grandfather, so I thought I was Native American. Turns out that my grandfather was adopted. So this whole time I've been telling a lie. I thought I was Native American. Now I feel like when they're
Oh,
like you're you're what is that when you're pretending to be like Elizabeth Warren. You're
when
like
you, oh
asking. You're
God,
like pretending to be an Indian, right? Um,
oh
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, but I didn't know. I thought I actually was because, but it turns out my grandfather was
Yeah, and
adopted.
I also found out I'm like a small percentage Norwegian French, which I never knew.
I'm Swedish, Norwegian, I know no French,
That's
just
how I
some.
got my name. Paris is from because when my dad had his roots traced way back when, he was really into that sort of thing. We were related to the Maxfield Parrish family, the painter.
Yeah.
That's how I got
But
my
it's
name.
amazing that you have French in you.
I
Like,
know.
yeah,
Well,
that's
and
amazing.
then my name's Paris, and I don't speak
Yeah.
French. I'm so
No, but it
embarrassed.
doesn't matter. But that's
I
amazing.
want to learn to speak French,
At
though.
least now if somebody says, "Are you French?" You can technically say, "Well,
Yes, I caught
technically, yeah.
1%,
Yeah,
1%.
1%. I'm in the top 1%, you can
Yeah.
say."
So don't you think the modeling business has changed so much since
Yes.
because I used to model also. I was with Premier in London, and it was so different now. I don't think they
Yeah.
even pay you as well anymore.
No, they don't pay you as well, but, at least now, like, I think, girls are e okay, there's this weird thing that I heard some years ago from a model that came in from New York, and I was shooting her, and she said that what they have to do is they have to okay,
No.
Paris, no, I'm gonna
What?
have to tell you no,
I'm trying to turn
this
this
is
off.
just crazy,
Okay.
alright?
Yeah. Oh
What
God. I don't even
they do
know.
is they set up models in a model apartment, Okay. But they're very expensive. And in order for the models to be able to pay for their monthly rent,
Yeah.
they have to go to nightclubs 2 to 3 times
Oh
a week.
God, what does that have
So
to do with
I know with
modeling?
modeling where you're supposed to look
Wait, I
healthy
this
and
you don't
clean.
you guys look so cute right now. I can't even stand it. So I'm gonna have to take a photo of you. You're gonna love this.
But
Okay,
what,
so no,
yeah,
wait, you
you
have to go to a nightclub and
it's
do bottle or just hang
no,
out.
just hang out.
You have
But
to go to a
but imagine
nightclub.
if you're hanging out, after what if you're young, you're gonna start drinking, you're gonna
What the
sorry, my voice is getting
hell?
like high. I'm
Who
getting so
told you this?
passionate,
The girl,
excited
you
about it.
know, some models are.
An actual model and
Oh
the
my
girl who told
God.
me her boyfriend was actually one that made money off of it like this. So she actually knew for sure because that's how her
What are
boyfriend
there?
made
I don't
money.
even know what agencies are here anymore. It doesn't even seem like I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on in
Well,
LA. It doesn't.
I don't know about LA. Well, I know Elite's still here somewhere because Georgia, has been working with them forever. A lady named Georgia, that used to be a model as well. But I don't know, actually, to tell you the truth. People come up to me and they want to talk about fashion and things like that, and I'm like, oh, and I smile. I just like put on that
I
smile.
know.
I'm like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you really love that. The other day at the pop up, somebody was talking about Dolce Gabbana. I'm like, I hate Dolce Gabbana, and they're like, why? And I'm like, because it's like a pussy on a string. Like I don't like it. Like I'm not into it. And then they're like, oh, okay, what about Tom Ford? And I'm like, huh. And he's like,
Oh
I work
gosh.
I work for Tom.
Who are you
No,
talking
no,
to?
sweet guy. Really, really, we had gotten along so well. But he says, I work for Tom Ford. And he goes, he wasn't nice to you when you went to see him. I'm like, no, right after Gucci died, he was actually kind of a jerk when I went to see him. So, like, when people want to come up and gush about modeling, it's like when you've actually been in the industry and you see how, like, how it is and how
Yeah.
people are, it's like you kind of just don't want to go back there.
I know, but I only did it for a little while because I was having more fun running around with my ex-boyfriend. But I mean, I think it was about like there 2 or 3 years in London. But primarily, it was very very. I didn't have any weird experiences during my time, and it was when all the ethnic look came in, so I was like running around on castings with Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell, and I would see Gail Elliott and Yasmin
Yeah,
Laban and
that
all
was
the
around the same.
dark-haired
Yeah,
girls there, and I was always like, "Oh my
what year
God, I'm
was
never
that?
gonna get this."
What year were you
Oh
there?
God, in the late 80s, like early 90s. Like
So that
it
was me.
was.
You were there at the same time as I
Mhm.
was. I
I was
got
in
there in
London, and I don't
87,
know, I
88.
think London was I never felt like in a awkward position, but I knew I heard stories about things, you
That's
know?
because London, was very
Yeah,
conservative.
it was. I
You
mean,
know,
I felt very safe, you know,
try going into Italy, Spain,
no.
and
Yeah, no,
France. To the Latin
I
countries.
wasn't really spending any time there, just mainly
Nobody
London.
did anything bad to me in Germany. I mean, I
Yeah.
was a year in Germany without molestation. But in the other ones, it's just part of the culture.
It's so awful, isn't it? I think it's
Okay,
still
I
that
have to tell
way.
you
They're
a
just more
funny story.
cautious.
Okay, I have to tell you a funny
Okay.
story.
I love funny
So
stories.
when I was in Italy, um, when I first got there,
Yeah.
right, I didn't have any money, right? And I was with an agency and it was fine. But, they wanted me to like go dance for dollars outside,
Oh, Lord.
which dance for dollars outside means like you go to a club like 30 minutes outside and you just go and dance so that the old men, because it's just old
Ugh,
men at
this
clubs,
sounds
right? It
this
was so
sounds
disgusting.
terrible.
That's why I left and went to Spain. But that's not the thing. So when I was so hungry, I
Okay.
was so hungry because I didn't have any money, right?
Oh,
Yeah, and I wasn't
I
working,
remember those
right?
days.
Right. So there was this club Hollywood, right? And they
Mhm.
had pizza nights every Sunday. In
No, I
Italy, you
never
didn't
heard
go
of
to Italy,
this.
but it was my friend Massimo Ferrari, and he had pizza nights every Sunday. But
I still go to
ri-
pizza night every Sunday if you tell me
right,
where to go here
right.
in LA.
I
Yeah, I
wish I
love
went
pizza.
pizza night, and
Pizza's the
so
best.
and so couldn't even afford to get to the pizza night. So I would stand on the corner where the transvestites
Oh
would
God.
where back then they
Yeah.
were called transvestites. So now they're transsexuals, but
Are
those were
they?
like the
Why
transvestites,
don't say transvestite? I think they're transvestites still.
they were transvestiti in Italian. That's what they called themselves. I'm a
Oh, I like that.
transvestiti.
Transvestiti.
Yeah. And so anyway, I would stand where they would go to get, to get hookups. And I would stand there and I would wait until like two young boys came around the piazza and I'd be like, "Hey, you want to get into Club Hollywood?" And they'd be like, "Yeah." And I'd be like, "Great." And I knew they couldn't get in without me and they knew they
Yeah.
couldn't get in without me. So I knew I was safe. And so then therefore they would take me to the club and I get them in. I wouldn't talk to them after I get in. Like, there you go. I got you in. Have a nice
I'm gonna
time.
eat pizza. Leave me
Yeah,
alone.
peace out.
Yeah. How
I
would
need
you
my
get home?
pizza. And then I would just somebody at the pizza would, end up getting me home. But
Wow.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So that was kind of the things you had to do do just to
Yeah,
kind of survive?
when I first moved to New York and I was just before I went to London, I was so broke and I remember I was just telling this to my son the other day. I would eat a bagel. There was a little coffee shop by where I was staying, and I could get a bagel and cream
Mhm.
cheese and a cup of coffee for like three
In New
dollars or
York?
something. Yeah,
Yeah, me
and that's
too.
all I ate
Me too.
the whole
Me
day.
too.
That's my
I
budget,
could
three
do I
dollars.
would do I would do 2 bagels if I
Yeah,
was
now if you get that, it's like $60.
Oh, no.
If you
Oh,
get two
no.
bagels in
I could
LA,
get
it's
away with, like
$30 a
I could get
bagel.
away with, like, $5 a day or whatever, 2.50
Yeah,
a
I
bagel.
was so
Yeah.
hungry, and like if I really wanted to splurge and give myself a treat, I'd get like a YooHoo.
But, that's the first time I ever had macrobiotic food, and it was the worst ever in my life. I was a vegetarian at the time,
Uh,
but I moved to New York, and there was this tiny little, like, almost the size of a closet,
yeah.
shop. It was a little macrobiotic shop, and they put no sugar in their cookies. Man, I would suffer thinking I was being healthy, and it was so gross, I wanted to throw up, right? And just because there was no sugar, right? And I live on sugar, so that was just like, man, that was not working
I
with
know.
me.
So it's kind of yeah. I think a lot of like a lot of women can feel our pain with
Yeah.
the days of not having many and starving and
Yeah.
modeling and
Yeah, and then the people are like, "Why are you so thin?" It's like,
oh, I don't have
"Bitch,
any
maybe
money.
I can't
Yeah,
afford any food." Like, "Do I come up and ask you why you're so fat? Like, give me a break," you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
But you're
no.
still so thin. You're just not. You have
I
just
still get that
you're
comment all
still
the time.
yeah. You're still so thin. But you're just naturally thin. You're and your kids
Yeah.
are like you guys all have
Like,
the same
I
build.
would have to eat, like, 2 to 3 hamburgers a day in order to, like, look like a normal,
I know.
woman
I
with,
love
like,
that you love
weight
to
on
eat
me.
hamburgers. I've
Yeah.
gone and she can put a burger away.
I'll have a heart attack before you, but yeah.
I know you get well, no, you
Yeah.
won't. Nobody's
Well,
gonna have a
let's
heart
hope not.
attack.
Yeah.
So now getting back to your art and your photography,
Yeah.
what's next?
Oh, God. Um God, what's next? I've been really into putting texture on, going back into into my library, into my archives,
Hmm.
and finding imagery that I can turn into artwork. That's been
That's
kind of
cool.
exciting for me. Yeah.
So mixed
Yeah.
media kind of
Yeah, like a
thing.
mixed
I love
media.
mixed
Yeah.
media
So
right now.
that's been really
Like
exciting.
this.
Yes, like that.
Sorry
So
about my big
yeah.
mug up here
Yeah,
again.
just
I
with
don't know what else to put
textures
there. We need some new paintings.
because I feel like, I've been shooting for what, 14, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And so I never had time until recently to actually go back and actually look. When I was shooting editorial, you'd put out, the magazine needed it really quick. You'd, shoot it very quickly. You're putting things out. I would
Yeah.
even go back after the editorial and actually make the editorial that I wanted because I didn't have time at the time to give them what I wanted, right? And so now I can actually go back and look and be like, wow, I would have done this completely different. I would have chosen different images.
Hmm.
I would have done this. And so yeah, so I'm loving my catalog, my archives right now. And it's just now how do I make them into art? So that now we can appreciate this image
Right.
even more. Even though I mean, I think things are wonderful in the photographic form. I mean, in my home, as you know,
Yeah.
there's photography all over and only a few art pieces. But it I think people, because there's so many pictures online and things like that, people can just, go through art so quickly, go through photographs so quickly
Hmm.
because everybody's posting, everybody's doing this. And so I think something that physically takes more time, that you have to add more time to that image
Hmm.
is kind of interesting. So yeah, so that's that. I think that's what I'm into. And I've been shooting a lot of florals, flowers, things like that, things that
Cool.
could take textures good. Um,
And you
lately,
love and you're speaking of
yeah.
flowers, you
Oh
love
my God.
gardening, don't you? Your
Yeah.
garden's cute. I saw the
Yeah.
pictures the other day.
Well, I think, if, in my world of worlds, when I look at when my eyes are too tired from taking photographs,
Mhm.
I wanted I want to create non-toxic gardens or refab people's backyards and front
Mhm.
yards to make them non-toxic for cats and dogs and children. And so that's kind of like my thing,
Yeah.
because we have cats and dogs in our garden and I take care of our condo. I take care of
Do you really?
yeah, they remunerate me and give me a little stipend.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
You do all the plant you do all
I take care of the whole
that's
garden.
really super
And
cool.
so then I take photographs along the way as things, as I see interesting things. And but I think, yeah, when I retire, I'll be like, you know, okay, let's garden design.
Are you gonna
Yeah.
retire?
Well, I think I've
Can
been
anybody retire
I
anymore?
mean,
I
I think I've
mean,
been retired since I'm 25,
really?
but I haven't been retired as in like financially retired. I've just been retired from that one industry that like sucked all of the life out of you for a
Yeah.
decade, right? And so So yeah, so no, nowadays I don't think we can retire because they say we have to have stocks. I didn't even think about stocks. I don't know about you, but I mean,
No.
we're
My
talking
I
about
know when my dad was a
financial planning. Yeah, my
stockbroker, and he
brother,
built more
everybody, they all
stocks.
have stocks, I mean,
Oh, it's
yeah,
weird.
I didn't even think about stocks. I think they need a school, like a class in school that teaches girls about like, hey, by the way, if you want to retire, if you don't want to work till you're like 99 years old, right? And life's getting more expensive because I think you need like $7 million to retire now or $10 million. It's not like you need like
Oh my God.
700,000 to retire, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be tough for us unless I don't know, unless things get easier.
And it's been a little tricky out here, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
because with the art, I mean, you think about people have lost their homes when we had the
Mm.
Palisades fires.
I know, I keep thinking
Um,
that, so because it's been a little different with the art sales right now after a lot of people and a lot of our clients lost their homes, so I think it's gonna take a while
yeah.
before people are thinking about collecting again.
Yeah, because first they've just got to get their walls up,
Yeah, and
so
also I'm hearing that most people, like a lot of people, some of these people in their 70s, and they don't wanna wait for 10
no,
years for their house to be
no,
rebuilt, so a lot of people are selling their lots.
right,
Just
moving
c
out.
and then the insurance money's not covering the house what it would cost to rebuild a
So you think you're
house.
gonna have a lot of vacant
So there's
lots?
gonna be a lot of vacant
Yeah.
lots, and maybe I don't know, I really don't know, but my Darlene told me that because she's in real estate. She said people are just like, "Screw it, I'm gonna go
And
somewhere
I
else to
think
take."
that also too, I mean, if you really look at it, we're at the decline of an empire right now
Mhm,
with a very uncertain future, right?
mhm.
So I think people are holding on, saving, you hear in the news kind of start saving a nest egg because it could get worse, right? So I think that you have, it's a lack of people are saying, let me hold off
Yeah,
a minute. So I think that that is affecting artists. So buy everybody, hey, buy what you can from artists because we
yeah.
need it. But I do think that's affecting artists. Yeah, yeah.
Well, where can we look up your artwork? What's your website?
Well, I mean, anybody who's in town, of course, can stop by the Butcher's Daughter
Yes,
and see a couple of images.
we have a few pieces hanging at the Butcher's Daughter
Right,
on Melrose.
right.
It's a really cute little cafe. I feel really bad that we didn't put the address on the invite because people showed up at Leica and the other Butcher's
Oh
Daughter in Venice.
no.
Oops. I know, but I just
Uh-oh.
thought if
Uh-oh.
I don't know why people would have just
Because
assumed that it
when
was.
it's Leica branded, you just think it's going to be at Leica. I think that's the
Yeah,
thing.
and we're sorry
But yeah,
about
no,
that
I have a
people that showed up
website.
at Leica.
I have
What's
a
it?
website,
Yes.
LesaAmoore.com, LesaAmoore.com. And then my Instagram, of course, is there, but just my website. And then I've been working on a gallery that I was hoping to have finished before I came on this podcast, but I didn't. I didn't, with everything going on in the world and in LA. But I'm trying to get a gallery up so that I'll have my first um, online, direct from the artist
That's
gallery
good.
for sale, so people can have my art in their home. We had a lot of people for so many years ask me for my art, and unless I had an art show, uh, I wasn't really, putting it out
Mhm.
there, allowing it to be available for sale. And so, you had a lot. So I'm finally happy that I'm able to get that done. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, I just wanted to, I'll just end with this. And I don't think I've ever even told you this story. Maybe I have. But how I met Lisa is a girlfriend of ours used to have the fabulous penthouse where Liberace used to live. Remember the Liberace
Yeah.
penthouse,
Yeah.
Linda Peluso. And so we had like a little like art and like jewelry or
Hmm.
some kind of little like pop up with jewelry and
Hmm.
clothes and stuff. And you showed up to that.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
and
how
I
we met
saw
through
you walk in.
Linda.
I don't remember who you were with. You were with some guy. And you walked in and you were just like this gorgeous, tall, towering
That's when I
beauty
was
with
host.
this
Uh-oh.
like
Sorry.
just your hair was long and red.
Yeah.
Long, it was a
That's when I was hosting for Young Hollywood. I was
yeah,
doing,
yes,
interviewing
yes. And
celebrities.
I was like, who is that lady? She's got like an amazing vibe. I want to know her.
Oh no, that
And
was
that's where I
you were
met you.
amazing. And I think we became fast friends
Yeah,
from
we
that
did.
point
Well, and you were
on.
doing a lot of those parties and you kept
Yeah.
inviting me to them. And it was so
Yeah.
great. Remember all the good gift bags they used to give out?
Yeah.
They don't do that
Yeah,
anymore
the gift
either.
lounges. They
I
don't
think
do the gift
only at the
lounges?
Oscars they do the gift bag.
Oh.
Back in the day, anywhere you went that was like a groovy
Uh-huh.
party, they'd give you gift bags
Not
with
only
like
that, I used to get the best,
beautiful
like
things.
Elton John. I'm sure they still give gift bags
Yeah,
out at the
I'm
Elton
sure they
John, but
do.
I used to get the greatest gift bags from the Elton John,
Yeah.
like with like bottle openers, wine openers that are so thick and heavy. You're like, oh, this feels
Yeah.
good. All the special
No, they used to
stuff,
give you like
and like,
shoes and
uh,
bottles of wine and the opener and the like caviar facial cream and all this crazy
yeah.
stuff.
No,
I miss
I
those
loved,
days.
I loved those little gift lounges. Those were
Yeah.
fun, especially as being a single mother of two. You know,
Single mother of two, one
I
half
really
Chihuahua, one half
appreciated.
Italian.
Yeah, I appreciate them. And I think that when I think about you, right? Somebody who's been solid. I mean, you've always been there for me and you've always been there for everyone, right?
Aw.
But when I think about your vibrancy, right? Because we can both get really loud, you and I, so I'm like, okay, let me
That's what we like to do.
keep
Yeah.
calm and collected. But no, we can get loud because we have a vibrancy for life. And I
Mhm.
think that you have that in your work. You have the passion for art, you have a passion for life, you have a passion for everything that you do, right? And I think that's why it's so fun to work with you because me, it's hard to get me to say yes to something. I'm like, yeah, I'm not into it.
I know I've
Thanks,
been really lucky in
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I didn't know it was going to be everybody'd be so happy and willing to be on this show.
Yeah.
No one's like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Oh, I'm not sure about that. Everyone's like, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
And now, but I'm so glad we're friends, and I love you
Me too.
dearly.
I love you too.
She really is one of my best friends.
I love you too.
We spend each other's birthdays together and the holidays and this and that and the
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
There's one thing I did want to talk about with you, and that is I just wanted to mention that the Fashion Workers Act,
Okay.
right? Just because I have this opportunity
Okay.
here, we had passed last year. Finally, Kathy Hochul in New York signed into law the Fashion Workers Act. It had sat on her desk, kind of
Yeah.
been passed up for some years, and she finally had signed it into law. And now models for the first time can have transparency of their accounting. What was
Oh,
where was their money spent
wow.
on?
That's interesting. I
Right.
never saw any of
Yeah.
that.
So I want
You
and
didn't ever see that. You're
yeah,
right.
no,
What the
you
hell?
didn't. And if you finally did get a printout, you couldn't understand what it said and where
Yeah.
it was going. And so now there's certain things. And I encourage everyone who is in the modeling industry or who is shooting with models, and that's why I'm bringing it up as a photographer
Good.
who's shooting with models to look over the Fashion Workers Act, because even though it's only uh, lawful, law in New York, it should be law everywhere, and
Okay.
it should be the way that we are starting to standardize and treat models at least just that little bit, because it's not asking for much, the Fashion Workers
Wow,
Act. So
thanks for sharing that
yeah,
information.
yeah.
And where can they find what people find that
From
more?
modelalliance.org, you can find
Hmm.
out more about about the Fashion Workers Act, and Model Alliance also has an Instagram as well for people who are lazy and just want
That's
to
so
go to
cool.
Instagram.
Model Alliance, modelalliance.com. Only Lesa Amoore knows that.
.org.
And dot
Dot
org. Well,
org.
that's good. No, that
Yeah.
you're right. Because when I was in Europe, I never saw it. You'd kind of heard what the base was, but you really didn't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and there, it's the first step. It's
yeah,
the first step, the Fashion Workers Act, and everybody should, push for their states to also adopt that has any kind of
smart.
fashion industry in
I
it.
love it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
My
Lisa.
pleasure.
And Disco, thank you for being a good boy.
Thank you, my
And
disco,
thank
for
you
keeping me
to my
company.
team. And thank
Thank you,
you
team.
for listening and watching or spending a little time with us at the Paris Chong Show. Thank you.